Group scheme.
With us right now is Minister of State for Foreign Trade, Ministry of Economy of the UAE, Dr. Thani Bin Ahmed Al Zeyoudi. Dr. Thani, thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin by asking you about the impact of CEPA on trade volumes between the two countries since the time the CEPA was finalized. What has been the increase in trade volumes that you've seen?
Well, first of all, it's really a pleasure to be part of this interview speaking about one of the most strategic initiatives that we signed with India last year. The impact was excellent. We're still doing the analysis, but there was a growth in our bilateral trade volume for non-oil commodities. We exceeded $49 billion with a growth of 10% in comparison to the year before. The distinguished thing that there was a huge growth as well from the Indian exports to the UAE by 26%, which means there is a huge potential to take this relation forward. We're celebrating the anniversary in a few days from now on the signing, and we're going to do the full analysis of the agreements by May 1st after completing one full year of the full implementation of the agreement.
Right. I'd like to ask you about the negotiations on the trade deal between India and the Gulf Cooperation Council. Do you think a larger agreement between India and the GCC is now within reach?
Well, the process has just been kicked off. The basis is going to be the CEPA between UAE and India to be taken into consideration. The discussion between the technical teams from both sides are happening, and we hope that things will be kicked off soon, inshallah.
Right. Also to ask you about the kind of growth and trade volumes you're expecting with India as a result of the CEPA by the end of 2023.
Well, the expectation in the overall until 2030 from now, but our ultimate goal is to reach $100 billion for non-oil trade between both nations. I'm sure this year is going to be very distinguished because usually in any trade agreements, the first few months are trial, the testing the systems, trying to improve the efficiency here and there. And this year is going to have more and a high growth in comparison to last year. Since we're having this 10% growth, I'm sure we're going to exceed the 10% growth even this year, inshallah.
Right. Could you also give us a sense of how CEPA is opening up the movement of professionals from India to the UAE? How many salaried professionals, high net worth individuals have moved to the UAE since the start of the CEPA? What kind of growth do you expect in work visas, golden visas, and permanent citizenships for Indian nationals?
Well, let me clarify something here. CEPA will not force millionaires and billionaires to move from one place to the other. It was going to open business opportunities to many of them. Since CEPA has been focusing on highly talented people and the creation of highly skilled jobs, with the expectation that it's going to create more than 1 million jobs in India and more than 140,000 highly skilled jobs here in the UAE. When it comes to golden visa and the movements of millionaires, it has been associated with the other policy changes and laws modifications that we did in the country. So we usually calculate and sum up all the numbers from all over the world. Last year was very distinguished. We had more than 4,000 wealthy people move to the country, including the ones from India.
Are you expecting investments to flow from UAE to India? Would you be announcing new investments into Indian private sector, into Indian government programs this year?
Well, a few years ago, His Highness the President, Sheikh Ahmed Al Zeyoudi, announced a big fund dedicated to the infrastructure investments in India. We're progressing on the implementations. India is booming, and many of the movements of low income to mid-income categories. We're talking about 250 million population moving to the city area, which means that there are so many developments and constructions and associated services with that movement, which means that there is a huge potential of investments for our sovereign wealth and companies. I just came back from Uttar Pradesh a few days ago, where we participated as partner country with a huge delegation from our side, looking at business opportunities at the state. So yes, there are many opportunities that we're exploring and working on. A few things which has been announced in the last few months on the food security, but we're going to continue exploring many of the investments in the Indian markets. The potential are huge, and we always look at the Indian market as one of the targeted top when it comes to our priority markets.
Right. Dr. Thani, I'd like to ask you about the Adani Group. We believe that the Adani Group of India has reached out to Abu Dhabi Investment Authority for a $1 to $1.5 billion investment. Could you confirm that these negotiations are on currently?
Well, this is a pure business-to-business discussion. We, as the government, has nothing to do with it. So this question will be dealt directly with the relevant authority.
Right. At the same time, we would like to ask you about the investments that UAE entities have made into the Adani Group. Currently, there are controversies around the valuation of the company because of the Hindenburg report. Abu Dhabi's IHC has plans to invest $381 million in the Adani Group. Is the UAE government reviewing its investments, partnerships with the Adani Group?
Well, again, this is a business-to-business discussion, and we at the government has nothing to do. We at the governments and even the Indian governments, we set the scene, we open the doors, we ensure that the policy, the engagements, the agreements between governments are there to encourage our business people to discuss with each other and partner, work together. So this question will be answered directly by the IHC, the relevant company, on this, and they will be in a position to clarify the situation.
Right. My final two questions. Is there a possibility of India and UAE forming certain strategic alliances or technology partnerships this year? Is there any such deals that you are pursuing with the Indian government?
There's so many discussions are happening in all levels. What we are asking here is to expedite the discussion between both parties so we can announce it at the right time. But for sure, as India, as the host of G20 this year, and the UAE as the host of the COP28, there's so many discussions in the technology aspects and the relevant sectors that are an interest for both nations.
Right. My final question, what about sale of defense products, defense trade, joint production? Are there talks going on between India and UAE on that front?
Well, my work is not linked to the defense. I'm handling non-oil trade businesses. The defense matters is handled directly by our Ministry of Defense. There are some discussion and talks directly between the relevant authorities, but it's outside the scope of my work.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Thani, for joining us here on the program on News Center, giving us your view of the trade partnership and how the CEPA could give a boost to the trade relationship between India and the UAE. Thanks once again for being with us.
Thank you.
When our big